Hello everyone. Today we will look into the React hooks. So, what are hooks? Hooks are provided by React so that we can have the lifecycle methods in our function component as well. As of now, if you know that in class-based component we can have a state, but uh, till hooks were introduced, there was no such method to have a state in a functional component. So hooks are basically the functions that provide us the uh, lifecycle methods of a class-based component. So in this lecture, we will look mainly into the three hooks, and you can learn more on the React website. So the first hook that we'll look into is useState hook. So what this useState hook does it is used to create a state in a functional component, and we can change the state in a functional component using this useState hook. The second hook that we'll look into is useEffect hook. So what this useEffect hook does it, we can have API calls to fetch data or any other side effect that we can do here in this useEffect hook. The third one is we'll look into the useReducer hook. So in case we have complex state, so managing those complex state using the use state hook is a little bit cumbersome. So we have use reducer hook so that we can manage the complex React states. So let's look at the syntax of these three hooks and understand how they work. So the first is the use state hook. So suppose you want to have a state, say count. I want to have a state say count and I want to have the value initialized as 0. Okay, so how we can write the use state? Let's see. So we have use state, and then here we give the initial value of the state, which is 0, and we can store the state in a variable say count and a function that is returned by this use state hook. We can have set count. Okay. So this is the syntax. Now let's look into the syntax. So this use state hook will set the state state name count value to 0, and it will return us a function set count which we can use to change the value of the state. Okay. And then the second one is the use effect. So the syntax for this is very simple. In use effect, what it takes is a callback function, and the second argument that it takes is the dependency array. So this callback function is done uh, based on this dependency array. So suppose what we have in the dependency array, if it is blank, then this use effect hook, this function is called only once. Okay, it is similar to component did mount in our class-based components. And further in this callback function, whatever function we can have a function, say something like this. We are calling some fetch API, okay, and we are storing the data in some state variable, say data, okay, and this callback function, this can also return a function, a cleanup function, which will act similar to the component will unmount. So we can return a function also. So this function can have something like uh, this will clear the data set. Okay, so what happens is whenever this use effect, this hook is called, so React checks if the function returns something. So if it returns something, that then function is called first, and then the instruction of the callback functions are called. So this is used in case you want to refresh the data. Okay. And what happens, what this dependency array has, what does it mean? It means that if you have the dependency array as blank, so it will be the use effect hook is called only once. And if you have, say, you may want to have run this function again based on some state change or props change. So you can write it here. So suppose you have the data. If you write data here, then whenever this data changes, this useEffect function is called. So this useEffect uh, works similar to component did mount and component did update and component will unmount. Okay, so these three methods that we had in class-based component, these three methods can be implemented in a functional component uh, using this useEffect hook. Then the third one is the useReducer hook. So the syntax for the useReducer is you write useReducer and then you have a reducer function as an argument. And the second thing that we have is a state, okay, the initial state. And what it does, it will return us some variables. Say we have the state and a dispatch function. So suppose I want to have initial state as count as 0. So what I'll write instead of state, I'll just write the JSON object of having multiple states, and this state will be assigned to the state variable name, this state. Okay. And this use reducer will return us a dispatch function which we can use to change the state. So we have to write the reducer function in our functional component first. So what it takes the state as an argument and an action object. Okay, so we pass the current state to this reducer, and then we, we pass the it has the argument as an action object, and it has a property say type. So what we can do is we can check the action dot type, and based on the type we can do certain state changes. Say I have this count as 0, so I want to when I the action type is increment, I want to increment it by 1, and if it is decrement, I want to decrement the value of this count by 1. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll check action dot type. If action dot type is increment, okay, then what we'll do, we'll return the new state with the value of count as count plus 1. Okay. And similarly, if the action type is decrement, we can return the new state with count, the value of the count as count minus 1. Now, if we want to use it, how we'll use it? We already have a dispatch function written by this use reducer. So simply say we have a button. So on click of this button, what we'll do is we will just call the dispatch method with the type, which is the action type is increment. Okay, and we can have another button. We can call it increment button. We can have decrement button, and then this button will do the same thing. It will cause the dispatch and with type as decrement. So see what happens is that the dispatch further calls this reducer, and it will check the type of the action, and based on this it will return us a new state. So this is how we can use reducer hook to manage complex state. Why complex state? Because here what we can have is a JSON object, right? We can have multiple, say count and some other variables, say name, age, whatever you want. You can have the state like this, and you can, based on this reducer function, you can write in such a way that it will return us a new state based on the type.